Thanks, Graham, good afternoon, everyone. I lead an initiative for least developed countries, so I'm sort of speaking what I hear. One of the points is understanding what even private finance is. I think that's a problem. In life here, private finance is at the end of the list in terms of funding that LDCs are looking at. When you mention private finance, we're thinking LDCs have so many loans to deal with private finance, or you're going to give a loan to a community person and you're chasing them to pay and they can't pay. So I think there's a role for private sector to explain what does private finance mean, what are the types of instruments that can build adaptation LLA, because not everything can. I think there's a missing gap there. And as somebody mentioned at the start, each institution works separately most of the time, and we don't know how to collaborate on that. But I also want to emphasize the point that while private sector finance is important, public finance for adaptation still remains key, because whether we believe it or not, private finance is not going to invest where there are risks. So we need public finance, we need philanthropy to de-risk investments that private sector cannot invest in. So that remains important, especially for the least developed countries. And especially when we're talking about locally led adaptation, that is important to build systems, capabilities, governance, foundations, so that private sector can scale up with institutions that can de-risk where they can't invest. I think that is really important for adaptation. Then the other one is the standards. May will spoke in the first panel. There's a whole framework on accountability for locally led adaptation. So how do we make sure that accountability, transparency is working with LDCs and private and public institutions, where we are looking at complementarity without losing subsidiarity of decisions from the local levels, women's groups, CSOs, and other small organizations. I think that's a question that we also need to answer. But the last one, also private sector. Are you willing to invest in non-financial products like early warning systems and all the others? Because it's not just about making the system work, we have to support the infrastructure around it. Yeah.